I knew something was off the moment she stepped into the restaurant. 5 minutes late, hair damp from the drizzle outside, and yet somehow carrying herself like she'd walked straight out of a quiet storm. She wasn't what I expected, and I sure wasn't ready for what she'd reveal before dessert. They say money makes dating harder, but no one tells you it makes sincerity feel like a magic trick, rare, questionable, and often an illusion. So if you've ever believed love can still surprise you in a world obsessed with labels and appearances, hit that like button and subscribe. Because what I'm about to share will challenge everything you think you know about first impressions and what really matters. My name's Elliot Kane, and I didn't plan to meet anyone that night, certainly not her. It was my sister's idea, another blind date on her endless crusade to humanize her reclusive billionaire brother. Just one dinner, she pleaded. One dinner with someone who doesn't know you own half the apps on her phone. I relented because she wore me down, and because, secretly, I missed connection. The kind that doesn't come with prenup jokes or networking agendas. The restaurant was her pick, quiet, tucked into a Boston side street with candlelight flickering against dark wood and soft jazz curling through the air. I arrived early, like always, and took the corner booth facing the entrance. When the door opened at 7:05, I knew. She didn't make a grand entrance, didn't scan the room for the richest man in it. She just walked in, shook the rain from her coat, and approached the host with the confidence of someone used to showing up alone. Her name was Nora. Not sure for anything, just Nora. She wore a navy dress that was functional rather than flirty and boots that had clearly seen miles, not runways. I stood to greet her, and she looked me right in the eye, steady, guarded, and entirely unimpressed. It was refreshing. Over appetizers, we made small talk. She liked black coffee, hated pineapple on pizza, and once taught middle school English before switching careers. She asked about my work, and I gave her my go-to version, consultant in digital infrastructure. It wasn't a lie, just edited. Most people don't question it, but Nora cocked her head. So you help people build things they don't understand and don't need? I laughed, genuinely caught off guard. Sometimes, yes. The ice was broken. We moved on to books, old movies, and the absurdity of online dating. She was sharp, witty, but still contained, like someone who had learned to measure every word. I was starting to enjoy the mystery, but then her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. She looked at the screen and froze. Her face didn't change much, but her hand tightened around her glass. "Is everything okay?" I asked. She hesitated, then sighed. "I'm sorry, I need to cut this short. One of my kids is having an asthma attack." My fork paused midair. "Your kids?" She stood, already digging in her bag for cash. 5. Foster placements. Ages 2 to 17. It's a long story. I blinked. 5. That wasn't in her profile. But before I could catch up to the gravity of what she'd said, she was already sliding out of the booth. I told her I'd cover the check. She nodded, thanked me with a soft, apologetic smile, and walked away. And just like that, she was gone. I sat there for a while, picking at the remains of a beet salad neither of us touched, wondering why her departure felt like an unfinished sentence. Most people run from complication. I couldn't stop thinking about her, about the flicker of panic in her eyes, the way she never once tried to impress me, the kind of woman who orders water instead of wine because she might need to drive someone to the ER at any moment, the kind who shows up on time when she can but won't apologize when real life intervenes. I pulled out my phone, stared at our messages. She hadn't said much before the date, just a polite confirmation and a smiley face. But now I found myself wanting to know more. Not just about her. About the 5 lies that depended on her. About what kind of strength it takes to walk into a blind date knowing you might have to run out at any moment. I didn't know it then, but that night would unravel everything I thought I knew about compatibility, timing, and love. Because Nora Green wasn't just a foster mom. She was a quiet force. And I was about to find out that some storms don't destroy. They clear the path. I didn't expect to see her again. Most blind dates end with mutual politeness and quiet disappearance. But something about Nora stayed with me like a song I couldn't stop humming. I told myself I was just curious, that I simply admired her selflessness. But the truth is, I hadn't stopped thinking about that unfinished evening, and the woman who walked out of it with more presence than most people ever walk in with. 3 days after our date, I found myself parked outside the small community center her nonprofit was listed under. I hadn't called, hadn't texted. I didn't even know if she'd be there. And yet, when I stepped inside, the sound of laughter and chaos immediately hit me. Crayons clattering, someone shouting about spilled juice, a toddler in mid-meltdown. And at the center of it all, Nora, hair tied up, sleeves rolled to her elbows, a baby on her hip and a walkie-talkie clipped to her belt like a general at war. She didn't see me at first. She was soothing a crying 4-year-old and giving side-eye to a teenager who'd clearly broken something valuable. She looked radiant in the kind of way no camera could capture. Real, fierce, focused. When she finally glanced up and saw me, her entire body stiffened. "Elliot?" she said, blinking as if unsure whether to be wary or surprised. "What are you doing here?" I cleared my throat, suddenly very aware of the privilege I carried into the room like an invisible badge. "I was in the area. Thought I'd see how you were." She arched a brow. "You tracked down a community center in East Cambridge because you were in the area?" "Fair. Okay, I might have Googled you." She smirked at that, just a little. "Ball's a move." I shrugged, offering a sheepish smile. "I wanted to know more. About you. About this." I gestured to the whirlwind around us. "This is impressive." "This is Tuesday," she said dryly, but there was no heat behind it. "Come on. You're already here. Might as well earn that curiosity." Before I could react, she handed me the toddler, sticky, wide-eyed, and holding a half-eaten cracker, and gestured for me to follow her. That's how I ended up spending 3 hours with kids who couldn't care less that I'd once spoken at MIT or been on Forbes 40 Under 40. One of them asked if I was a new dad, and another asked if I could fix the broken Xbox. I didn't know how to hold a toddler. I didn't know what snack was gluten-free or how to help with 6th grade algebra. But I watched Nora, how she moved between children like she was built from resilience, how she remembered every name, every allergy, every bedtime fear. Later, after the chaos dulled to a sleepy buzz, we stood in the break room with lukewarm coffee. "Why 5?" I asked softly. She was quiet for a moment. "Because 6 felt impossible." Then she looked at me and said, "I lost my daughter. And my husband. Car accident. 5 years ago. And I spent a year trying to pretend I was okay. Then one night I saw a story on the news about siblings being split up because no one would foster a group. Something inside me said, you've got space. You've got love. Give it." So I did. Her voice never cracked, but mine almost did. "And they let you take in 5 kids, just like that?" I asked, stunned. "Not exactly. I had to fight for them. Case by case. I work with the county. I've got a social work certification now, and a house that's nothing fancy, but built for chaos." She paused, glancing at me. "This is usually where people back off." "It's a lot." "I know. It's not too much," I said, before I could overthink it. "It's real. And frankly, more meaningful than any boardroom I've ever sat in." She didn't answer, but I saw something shift in her eyes, something cautious but open. That evening, I texted my assistant to block out Friday mornings indefinitely. I wanted to keep coming back. Not just for Nora, though let's be honest, she was part of it. I wanted to understand this world, to volunteer, to show up. And I did. For the next month, every Friday I was in town. I helped with snack prep, read to toddlers, got tackled during recess, and quietly learned how to earn the trust of 5 kids who had every reason not to hand it out. I also learned how to read Nora. When she needed space, when she was overwhelmed, when something had gone sideways with a caseworker or a funding grant. I never pushed. I just kept showing up. But the world doesn't always reward gentle rhythms. 2 months after our first date, the tabloids caught wind of it. Reclusive tech billionaire spotted in Boston Community Center. Is he dating a foster mom? That was the headline. Suddenly, Nora's world became the subject of gossip she hadn't signed up for. Donors started asking questions. Parents of other kids pulled back. The school district began reviewing her foster certification under public scrutiny. I'd come in quietly. But now I was the wrecking ball in her house of cards. She called me that night. "We need to talk," she said, voice flat. "I think we should stop seeing each other." "Nora, not because I don't care," she interrupted, "but because I can't afford to care about someone whose life sets mine on fire." She hung up before I could respond. And just like that, again, she was gone. This time, it wasn't because of a crying child. It was because of me. She didn't answer my calls for 4 days. Not a single text, not a wave from the porch, not even the polite nod she used to give me when I brought over extra snacks on Friday mornings. The woman who once handed me a screaming toddler and smirked when I nearly dropped him was now a silence I couldn't bear. I caused it. My presence, my last name, my entire orbit had collided with her world like a meteor into a glass house. I kept reading the headlines, each one worse than the last. Foster mom or opportunist? Kane's latest charity case? As if her years of service and sacrifice were suddenly suspect because she'd accepted a plate of pad thai from the wrong man. And yet, as much as she tried to shut me out, I couldn't walk away. Not from her. Not from those kids. Because love that's real doesn't retreat when it gets inconvenient. It leans in. And I wasn't about to lose the one person who made everything I'd built feel less like a fortress and more like a home. So I showed up. Not at her door. She'd made that boundary clear. But at City Hall, where I sat through a zoning hearing about her nonprofit's renewal license. I emailed her board, offering funding with zero PR conditions attached. I even reached out to the local parenting podcast that had run a nasty segment about her and asked, politely but firmly, for a retraction. I didn't call her again until I had something real to offer. That something came 6 days later when Keisha, her oldest foster teen, went missing. The girl had overheard a TV segment calling Nora a publicity stunt and assumed, in that adolescent way, that she was the embarrassment dragging Nora down. She ran. Nora didn't sleep for 48 hours. I found out through mutual contacts, and without asking permission, I activated every resource I had. We found Keisha in New Hampshire, staying with a friend from a previous group home. She was safe but shaken. Nora cried when we called her from the road. She met us at the community center with tears streaking down her cheeks and a fury that could have melted stone. "You had no right," she said, arms folded as Keisha went inside with one of the volunteers. "Maybe not," I replied. "But I wasn't going to sit by and let you lose one of your kids just to protect my ego." She stared at me for a long time, searching for the performance she was so used to from men. "You didn't call TMZ?" she asked bitterly. "Didn't invite a camera crew?" "No," I said gently. "Just brought someone home." That night, I left quietly. But the next morning, she showed up at my apartment, hair in a bun, hoodie that read, "Tired as a mother," and 5 coffee cups in a tray. "One's decaf," she said. "For Keisha. She's been twitchy." I blinked, unsure whether this was a peace offering or a test. "Want to come to the center today?" she asked. "They miss you. Especially the toddler you almost dropped." I chuckled, warmth spreading across my chest like sunrise. "Yeah," I said. "I'd like that." After that, everything shifted. Slowly, carefully. She didn't let me into every room of her life at once, but she left doors unlocked. I started helping her with grant applications, and she taught me how to make lunch for 5 kids without losing your mind. We went on dates, real ones, that ended not in goodbye kisses, but in kitchen dance parties while 2-year-olds screamed in the background. I wasn't trying to be a father figure. Just present. Just solid. Her kids weren't accessories. They were extensions of her strength. And somewhere along the way, they started calling me Ellie. Not Mr. Not Sir. Just Ellie. 3 months after we reconnected, I handed her a folder titled Kane Foundation X Greenhouse. It was a proposal to fund a second location for her nonprofit, a foster resource hub with therapy rooms, homework pods, and on-site daycare. "This isn't a rescue," I told her. "It's a partnership. I'm not giving it to you. I want to build it with you." She looked up, and I swear I saw the moment her walls cracked for good. "You really don't do halfway, do you?" "Not when it matters," I said. A week later, she invited me to family game night. Pizza, soda, a table covered in Uno cards and mismatched socks. Nora sat next to me, her foot nudging mine under the table. The 2-year-old drooled on my shoulder, and Keisha rolled her eyes at my bad puns. I was home. I didn't need headlines or boardroom applause. I had Nora. I had 5 kids who kept me humble. And I had a future that wasn't tied to stock price or quarterly growth. Just love. Chosen, earned, and loud in its beautiful messiness. So, if you ever find yourself on a blind date with a woman who carries the weight of 5 small lives and still shows up smiling, don't run. Sit. Listen. Because sometimes, the life you never planned for is the only one that ever made you feel truly alive.